Kimmi, but my favorite person in the world calls me MomMoM, so we'll just leave it at that, okay? As a grandmother, I love to read bedtime stories. I love to write stories too, and the story that I've written is more of a wake-up story than a bedtime story. It's called My Oregon Sweater, and I would really love to read it to you. Well, I finally did it. I pulled that string that had just begun to come loose on my favorite sweater. You know, that red, white, and blue one, the patriotic one, the one I used to wear all the time. Well, guess what happened? You guessed it, it unraveled right into my lap. And now, because of this, I am no longer a member of the silent majority. First of all, I think I need to tell you where my need to write this comes from. I'm a major and multiple mini-stroke survivor, about a dozen by now at least, and I've been left with long and short-term memory deficits, but no real physical deficits, unless you want to count the hole in my brain. I call it the info hole. Kind of creepy, huh? And ever since my first major stroke, though, I've had this insatiable need for information pertaining to global, national, and even neighborhood current events. Just ask me about the bunny incident. It's as if this hole in my brain has to be filled, but it's bottomless, and it is irritating, maddening, and even painful sometimes. So I'm hoping by putting some of this on paper and on video, I can get it out and get some relief. So here we go. It was January 29th, 2016, and I woke up after tossing and turning most of the night, as I do most of the time lately. I went into the kitchen, got the coffee on, packed my husband and kids their fresh organic lunches to go. Thanks, Michelle. Just another thing on my plate. I woke them up, got them all going on their way, and did all my typical mom stuff, and then sat down to do my norm. Enjoy my first cup of organic fair trade coffee, and click on the Drudge Report app to get the head start on the juicy news of the day. Well, I had been following the quote-unquote occupation or standoff of the wildlife headquarters out in Burns, Oregon, and the subsequent shooting, also known as murder, of one LaVoy Finicum, and subsequent arrest of some 7 or 8 more of the quote-unquote militiamen, along with Pete Santilli, a reporter that was on the scene. The headline read something like, FBI releases a video of LaVoy Finicum shooting. And my first thought was, well, that's surprising because I distinctly remember, and that is no small feat for me, thinking that when they said something about this in the first place, that we'll never see film of that because they actually murdered that man. Well, surprise, surprise, that horrible Thursday morning, I, along with the rest of the whole wide world, got to watch a man be murdered by the federal government on a snowbank one cold January afternoon on his way to a meeting to meet with the sheriff and a lot of other concerned citizens. I think that was the plot, was to keep him from making it there. As I clicked on the link, I was thinking, okay, this has to be a video of proof that the FBI was in no way wrong of murdering that man that day, that they were in mortal danger, that man must have been a maniac, jumping out of his truck with guns blazing, as some reports would have you believe. But as I watched, I thought, surely they've released the wrong video and someone's getting fired. Heads will roll, because the video I'm watching clearly shows an empty-handed man, arms spread wide, stumbling in knee-deep snow on the side of a country road, being pummeled with bullets and falling dead, murdered in cold blood before my very eyes. My husband always says, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. It is the internet, after all. So applying that logic, I set out to see what else I could find on the matter. I stumbled across a YouTube video that contained the audio recording of a phone call reported to be with a female passenger who had been a witness inside of LaVoy Finicum's vehicle during his murder. It later became clear that it was the voice of a rightfully terrified 18-year-old Victoria Sharp. I could hear the genuine fear in that young woman's voice as she recounted the tale of carnage, and I said a silent prayer of comfort for her. I searched further and I found an article that gave the written text of that phone call testimony just to be sure that I totally understood what she was saying because, I'm getting old and sometimes it's hard to hear. After seeing the video and reading and listening to the audio of her testimony side by side, there can be no doubt that the killing of LaVoy Finicum was outright murder committed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I've read comments that claim the video, quote unquote, clearly shows him going for his 9mm in his left pocket, which I have later discovered that his guns were all back at the refuge, safely locked away. Well, what I see when I apply her audio to what my eyes were seeing was it looked more like he may have been provoking them to save his friends, or I don't know, possibly reaching down to show them that he was not, in fact, armed. I don't care if he was telling tasteless jokes at the FBI's expense. They were not in mortal danger from that man or anyone else on that scene from the video that they themselves released. So they had absolutely no just cause to use deadly force. I believe it is more likely that when his arm does drop down, he was trying in vain to plug the bullet holes that he was being pumped full of. This was a real man doing the honorable and brave thing of getting out of the car to draw their fire away from the women who were still inside the vehicle, terrified and pleading for their lives. In the audio that I pray to God you seek to hear for yourself and compare it side by side with the video, you will hear that his attempts of that was entirely in vain as the FBI continued the hail of bullets upon his vehicle for several minutes after he lay dying on the ground. Their apparent intent was to murder everyone and leave no witnesses behind. The audio also lets us know that she now fears that she's in even graver danger by being a surviving witness to the carnage. In closing, it's really too bad that I can't take all this red, white, and blue yarn that was once my favorite sweater and knit myself a bulletproof vest. LaVoy Finicum, in my humble opinion, you are a true hero. Rest in peace. But America, in the end, I have to ask you this. Is he only the first of soon-to-be many American patriots to die while taking a stand for freedom? After all, they've got that whole refuge surrounded now with 4 men inside. 4 men! They're either terrified or they're set to murder them. And most importantly, if that video was not to clear the FBI of any wrongdoing, then it must be a warning shot across the very bow of America that they will put us down like dogs if we stand up to them ever, just like LaVoy Finicum.